church. We are redeemed and chosen, trusting in the God of love, the God of hope, the God of atonement. We are church. We believe in one way, one truth, one life, devoted, eyes fixed on the prize, devoted to Christ. We are church. We put God first. We are like-minded people created in Christ for good works, made in the image of greatness, made to reflect the greatest love ever known. We are church, the light in the dark, the hope to the hopeless, a brand new start, peace for the broken heart, a love that has open arms. We are church. Not four walls. We are a body of believers following the call to know we are forgiven, the call to love without condition, the call to trust without division. We are church, a community with open doors, serving the poor, living for more. We are broken people with a united cause, an unbroken love in a divided society, proclaiming Jesus is Lord. This is what we do. We don't judge. We don't hold a grudge. We are not perfect, but we aspire to love. We are church.
Morning. Are y'all all awake? You got an extra hour of sleep? Feeling refreshed? Auburn fans are a little upset. Blue Jays fans, like myself, are a little upset. Yeah, I know. Everybody hates the Dodgers, right? Yes. Everybody but Josh. Where's Josh? You got your Dodgers hat, Josh? We're going to burn it after church. All right, so if you got your Bible, go ahead and turn to Acts 22. My name's Dustin. I'm the pastor here, teaching pastor here at the Guntersville campus. And if you're new, we're so glad you're here. It's a great time to be new. This is a great first Sunday to be here, or maybe you've been here a couple of weeks. It's a great time to be here at Connect Church because for the next 3 weeks, I'm going to tell you who we are. We're in this series, it's a series that we made up, a 3-week series called Next Steps. And it's about who we are, what we're trying to accomplish, and simply what we are trying to do at Connect Church. And so if you're in a life group, you're going to receive one of these from your life group leader, a big fancy Next Steps packet. It's about, I think it's around 21 pages. You don't have to read all 21 pages, okay? Don't panic. But if you want to read it, I would surely encourage you to read it. But there are going to be some questions in there, some discussions. And so there are 3 sessions, and I'll be teaching on those 3 sessions in our Sunday morning time, and then you'll discuss them with your life group. I want to encourage you. You may say, I've been a partner here for longer than you've been a live preacher. That's good, and I'm grateful that you are. But I want us all to do this together, and that's the reason we're doing it in the big room in this time. I want us all to go back to this intentionality of who we are, why we're doing what we're doing, what we're trying to accomplish. And so today you're going to hear our goal. Right, you're going to hear our essentials, the things we believe, and our values in the other weeks. But today, I just want you to hear simply what we're trying to accomplish. What are we trying to do? What is our purpose, and what are we doing here at Connect Church? The simplest truth is this. You're going to be like, well, that's sermon's over. Let's go home. We are attempting to glorify God by connecting people to Him. It's that simple. This is why we're here. This is what we're doing. With all that's going on, we're trying to connect people to God so that He might be glorified in their lives, and their lives might get better. But we're also trying to connect you, right? Those of us who are already connected through Jesus to God, who are already connected, connect us with greater intensity to Him so that He'd be glorified in us. I truly believe this. Our happiness, our wholeness, our joy, our fullness of life is only found in the person and work or a relationship with Jesus Christ. And He is most glorified. He wants and longs for that in our lives, and He gets great glory from us enjoying Him. That's what I truly believe about Christianity, about life in general. That's my philosophy. So I want you to look at the handout. Everybody get the little handout? There's the big handout. Now, if you're not in a life group, I want to encourage you. We have stacks and stacks of them out front. I want you to grab one on your way out. All right? Even if you're not a partner here, you're visiting here, grab it, read about us, do it, go through it with us. But the little handout On the back side, you got something blue. You got a blue side and what it looks like a normal side. So I want you to flip over to the blue side. And so because I'm near blind, I am going to get the big booklet. And that is I think it's page 3 out of the big booklet. But in the big booklet, you have it in a full sheet. And right there, I know it's kind of small, but I just want to share with you just a couple of things, and then we're going to move on. So our goal is to glorify God by connecting people to him, whether they're people that are really, really far from him, whether they're people that are really, really close to him. We want to foster that connection. And we believe that is the purpose of the church on earth, right? We're to glorify God. And how do we do that? Mostly to the highest level is that we're connecting people to him. That's the reason he left the church on earth. But here's our structure. So this is the structure of Connect Church. I'm going to go through it real quick. So our structure, we are elder guided. All right, and that's intentional language. So there are 7 men at Connect Church that are making decisions that guide the future of Connect Church and guide us in strategy, guide us in mission, guide us in crisis, guide us in difficulty, from hiring people to firing people to leading people to caring for people to praying for people to looking at the finances. These are the leadership of Connect Church. Now, 5 of those 7 guys are not paid preachers, right? I'm an elder as the pastor of Connect Church, and Matt Chandler is the other staff elder of Connect Church. The rest of them are made up of guys from all 3 of our campuses that we gather. We gather the first Sunday of the month, and we'll gather today at 1:30, and we're going to be working on the budget for the coming year. Okay, so that's what elder guided. So these guys are prayerfully guiding our church into what we believe God has for us. And then there's staff-led. So we're a staff-led church. If you haven't noticed, most everything that's done at Connect Church, now we love for people who are not staff to lead things, but most everything that is done at Connect Church is going to be staff-led. We're going to do the community feeding at the end of this month. We did the fall festival last week. All of those things are led by staff, from children's ministry staff to student pastor staff to music staff to all the way up to the teaching staff and then pastoral staff. So we're staff-led. So we're elder-guided, staff-led. We're deacon-served. And so this is a little bit different than a lot of churches around in our area, is that deacons are not people who are voting on budgets and things like that, but deacons are just there to serve the church, to care for the church, to pray for the church, to make contact with the church, to be there when someone has a surgery, to be the first text message or the first phone call when a crisis comes in your life. So if you're a partner at Connect Church, you should have a deacon who's reaching out to you, making contact with you. May talk to you on Sunday morning. He may not know you. I know there's some that one deacon said, I don't know who these people are I'm texting, but we're going to figure it out. We're going to find them. He's a great deacon, serving. So that's what deacons do at Connect Church. They're serving the church. You may see them with an umbrella. You may see them taking up the offering. You may see them at a funeral, at the funeral home, or at your hospital bed. So we're elder-guided, staff-led, and deacon-served, and we're partner-empowered. We believe that for us to be everything that we are to be, according to God's design, that your voice, that your hands, that your eyes, that your ears, that your feet, every part of you, from the things you say and the wisdom that God would give you to the things you do, that you are incredibly vital to the work of God through Connect Church. In fact, you're essential to the work of God through Connect Church. We believe that every believer is called by God to love others and help connect people to him. It's not exclusively my job. It's not exclusively Brandon's job to make people feel welcomed here. It's not exclusively my job to share the gospel with people. It's not my job exclusively to disciple people. No, that's all of our job. I'm a partner here. So you are empowered to do the work of God here, and your voice matters. So if you're a partner, there are things we do vote on. Very few of them, because we try to keep that into what really matters. But there are a few of them that you'll vote on. So that's our structure. That's who we are as far as the structure and how we set up and how things kind of work. You're going to see there are convictions. We believe that every person on earth that lives and breathes needs to be connected to God. Every person, from the worst to the best, from the youngest to the oldest, we believe that every person matters in the eyes of God, and that he wants to glorify himself in their lives by giving them joy, peace, goodness that only comes through them believing the gospel, which leads to that final goal. The goal of Connect Church is simple, very, very simple. We want to glorify God by connecting you to him, but connecting the world to him. If it's in the villages of Africa or the mountains of India or if it's on Lake Guntersville in a boat. We want to connect people to God. So the question that is next is, what do we want from you? What do we want from you at Connect Church? What are we trying to move all of this structure together, this big boat? How are we moving this boat forward? Well, I believe the question is a personal question for you. We are all of those things. We're functioning in that way. But what is it that you do? Well, the first question and most important question that we want you to answer, for you to be a partner at Connect Church and be a part of what God is doing here, is to answer this question: am I connected to God through the person of Jesus Christ? Am I connected to God through the person of Jesus Christ? And so I told you to flip to Acts chapter 22. Now, you being connected to God through the person of Jesus Christ is a specific question, but it is the most important question that I could ask you. It's the most important question that every person who breathes should ask of themselves. Am I connected to God through the person and work of Jesus Christ? Am I a follower of Jesus Christ? Do I have a relationship with Jesus Christ? Am I saved? Is the reality that we're asking you. Do you believe it? By faith, have you taken Jesus as your Lord and Savior? And how has it affected your life? So I want us to do this, all right? So you can flip back over to the normal-looking side, not the blue side, and that's the sermon. And the sermon is going to be, I think it'll be fairly simple, fairly straightforward. But the key is this: for you not just to listen, but you to interact. When we talk about the questions, when we talk about Paul's story, and when I share my story, that you would reflect on your story. That's what I want you to do. You see, oftentimes I think we do a whole bunch of things in our life without giving thought to why we're doing it, don't we? I mean, we brush our teeth in the morning. I hope we brushed our teeth. Did we brush our teeth this morning? Some of you smiling like you didn't, all right? Right? Or maybe you know your spouse didn't. We brush our teeth, but we didn't have to think about the vision and the goal that I want to brush my teeth so I don't get heart disease, right? Or I don't get cavities. There were so many things in our life that we just do, but oftentimes it's important to just pause and go, why am I doing this? And what is most important about what I'm doing? So that's what we're doing. So the first question on your outline is this: what was my life like before I believed the gospel? And I literally want you to think about it. I would love for you to scribble it down. And maybe you write it in one word. Maybe you write it in one sentence. I think simple is good. Simple is best. When I can simplify it, that means I understand it, right? A good teacher is I take complex things and I make them simple. So what is the simplest description of my life before Christ? And I want you to look at Acts chapter 22. Acts chapter 22 is where Paul shares what in the old way we would call his testimony. But I don't want us to confuse a testimony with God's work in our life with the testimony of God saving us. So we're thinking about our salvation story. The time in which I was saved, the time in which I was actually connected to God through the person of Jesus Christ, the time when I first believed. So I want you to reflect. I want you to reminisce on those things. Now, if you're here today and you go, I don't have that, the good news is you can have it right now. By the time we're done today, I will have explained with you exactly how you can have this life-altering, life-changing truth in your life. That you can have peace and fullness of life, wholeness, abundance of life, not the abundance of possession, but the abundance of life, just joy and peace, fullness to your life. Acts chapter 22, Paul shares his testimony. Paul will share his testimony in Acts 22. He'll share it in Acts 26. He does it before his enemies, well, people who think him his enemies in Acts 22. He does it before a king in Acts 26. But Paul's story actually happened, the story that he's telling actually happened in Acts chapter 9. So you could go back and you could read all the three and you could look at that if you wanted to do some deep dive study on that. But in Acts chapter 22, Saul, I'm going to interchange his name. Paul he's in Jerusalem. Now, Jerusalem's the epicenter of Christianity. It's the same place in which Jesus is killed. And Paul has had a lot of controversy. He's been stoned. He's been left for dead. He's been threatened over and over and over again. And right at this point, he's incited a riot. And so the Roman officials have stepped in, and they've grabbed him, and they've kind of put him under arrest. But they kind of know that they're just kind of really protecting him from this rioting group of people. And he stands before them, And what he does is he just simply shares his testimony. So I want you to look at chapter 22 of Acts, and we're going to read verses 1 through 5. Chapter 22, 1 through 5. It says this, brothers and fathers, hear the defense that I now make before you. When they heard that he was addressing them in the Hebrew language, they became even more quiet. And he said, and then in verse 3, he's going to start telling you what his life was like before he believed. He said, I am a Jew born in Tarsus of Cilicia, and I was brought up in this city, Jerusalem, educated at the feet of Gamaliel, according to the strict manner of the law of our fathers, being zealous for God, as all of you are this day. Verse 4, I persecuted this way to the death, binding and delivering to prison both men and women. As the high priest and the whole council of elders can bear me witness, from them I received letters to the brothers, and I journeyed toward Damascus to take those also who were there and bring them in bonds to Jerusalem to be punished. What was my life like before I believed the gospel? That's what Paul has just said. He's saying, I know where he's singing to people who do not believe the gospel. I know where you are. Right? He's saying, I was once one of you. In fact, I was the best of you. That's what he says. You know, when we think about what our life was like before the gospel, we think of testimonies, people that would share their testimony of how, we think of major drama, right? We may think of someone who was drunk driving down the road and had a car wreck and boom, and then all of a sudden there's this awakening. They become alive, or maybe their lives fell apart, or maybe they were in years and years of addiction, or maybe they killed somebody. We may think of these dramatic stories. Paul says this, I was the best of the best. I was the best of the best. I was zealous for God. I was a persecutor of Christians. Now that's pretty dramatic. That's pretty negative. It's short, it's direct. It's 3 run-on sentences for him to tell us what his life was like before he believed the gospel. I was educated at the highest level. Gamaliel was the famous rabbi until Jesus rose from the dead. You get it? Like, he was the guy everybody wanted to be taught by. He was the school that everybody wanted to be in until Jesus rose from the dead. And then after a period of time, Jesus becomes the rabbi everybody wants to be taught by. Right? And so he is educated at the highest level. He is the best of the best. He's a Roman citizen by birth, not by buying it or earning it or working away. Understand this about the Roman Empire, and I'm chasing a rabbit here. The Roman Empire the majority of the people in the Roman Empire were slaves. They were not citizens. It was a very small, probably like 10% of the population of the Roman Empire were actually citizens. And even fewer of those were actually citizen by birth. So Paul is the best of the best. He's a culture maker in his world. He was zealous for God. He was zealous. He was motivated. He was passionate for what he believed was true. Oftentimes, you and I spend too much time on the before, almost glorifying our days of rebellion. Or you and I may think we don't have a story because our story isn't incredibly dramatic. We were 8 years old, and we knew that we had lied to our parents. And that was the conviction of sin that we experienced. For some of us, we may have been 28 years old, or 38 years old, or 88 years old. It doesn't matter how old you were. What matters is that you can remember what your life felt like, was like, before you came to Christ, before you believed the gospel. I was 16 years old, and I'll tell you more about that in a minute. To the ones in the room who you don't have clarity, maybe you don't know that you don't have a story because you don't have any clarity as to what it was like before and after. Understand this, everyone who is saved has a before and after. So let me give you some clarity. Right? So you are not too bad to be saved. That's often what men would think. I'm too bad to be saved, man. I'm still drunk right now when I came in this morning. My wife drug me here. I'm still drunk. Or maybe you did something else. Or maybe you have this great sin in your life, in your past, that haunts you. I want you to understand what Paul just said. We might overlook it. He said, I was a guy who was taking men and women and killing them for what they believed. I was imprisoning them for what they believed. And I was doing it as fast and as violently and with all the authority that I could. I was leveraging my status as a citizen of Rome, as a highly educated man. I was leveraging it to hurt people. Are you a Nazi? Because God saved Paul when he's killing men and women. And you were so arrogant to think that your sin's too much for God to save you from. It's pride, arrogance. There is nothing that you can do that is so bad that God will not save you. And there's no good that you can do to keep you from needing to be saved. That's more my perspective. 16 years old, a kid raised in church. I knew all the right things to do, and I was zealous to do the right thing. I was zealous to make a difference. I was zealous to be someone who was smarter, righter, more astute than others, more in tune, that never made a mistake. It was my personality. Maybe that's your personality. But what I found is I could never be good enough, and it's the truth for you too. No matter how educated Paul was, he would never be good enough to not need being saved. Some of us who live our lives thinking that we got to save ourselves, that we got to be good enough for God to save us. We got to know enough. We got to come to church enough. We got to do all these things. But the reality is, all of that is smoke and mirrors. You will never be good enough. What was your past like? What was your life like before you believed the gospel? Angry? Guilty? Shameful? Striving? Relentlessly exhausted, incredibly anxious because you felt like it all depended on you. I don't know. Your story. I know what mine's like. I think Paul would say this about his life. I was blind. Though I was educated, though I was passionate, though I was doing things that seemed to make a difference, though I was going as hard as I could go and everyone respected me, I was blind. So if Paul was saying it one word, that's what he'd say. And then the second question is, when did I truly believe the gospel? So if you're writing your testimony, you're writing your salvation story, and I want every person in this room, if you've got one, write it. If you don't have one, you can have one today, and then you can write it after today. When did I truly believe the gospel? Look at what he says in verse 6. So I was on my way to Damascus with letters for names and authority given to me to go and arrest people. And I was on my way, and I drew near to Damascus about noon. He knows where he's at. He knows the time of day without a watch. A great light from heaven suddenly shone around me, and I fell on the ground and heard a voice saying to me, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? And I answered, Who are you, Lord? And he said to me, I am Jesus of Nazareth, whom you are persecuting. Now those who were with me saw the light, but did not understand the voice of the one who was speaking to me. And I said, What shall I do, Lord? And the Lord said to me, Rise, go into Damascus, and there you will be told all that is appointed for you to do. And since I could not see, he was blind. And now physical blindness has come his way as a result of God's intervention in his life. And since I could not see because of the brightness of the light, I was led by the hand by those who were with me and came into Damascus. And one, Ananias, a devout man, according to the law, well spoken of by all the Jews who lived there, came to me, and standing by me, he said to me, Brother Saul, receive your sight. And at that very hour I received my sight, and I saw him. And he said, The God of our fathers has appointed you to know his will, to see the righteous one, and to hear the voice of his mouth. For you will be witness for him to everyone of what you have seen and heard. And now why do you wait? Rise and be baptized, and wash away your sins, calling on the name of Jesus. When did it happen for you? When is an important question. What was it like? When did it happen? And then how has it changed? Will be the process here. Saul's blind and passionate. He is zealously blind. Yet God meets him on the road. He knows the time. He knows the day. He knows the location. he recalls the conversation of God speaking audibly to him when no one else could hear it. He even knows the result of him being blind. It's dramatic. Anybody got a story that dramatic? Think about your story. You got one like that? The only person I know that's salvation story involves blindness is that guy. He's the only one I know. And it wasn't this dramatic. He wasn't riding a donkey at any time and got knocked off of it by a great lie. But Saul's story is incredibly dramatic. And sometimes we read these stories and we go, I need a story that dramatic. I don't have a salvation story because my story, there was no donkey, there was no bright light, there was no blindness, there was no me being led around. There were no scales falling from my eyes. There was no guy that received a dream. That's the only way he would talk to me, like Ananias received a dream. He's like, I ain't talking to him. God says, here's a dream. You better. We think that our story it has to be so dramatic. But the point isn't the drama. That's not the point of what Paul's saying. The point is the confession. Right? The when, you may not know the day. You might not know the hour. You may not remember what the preacher preached on. It could have been in your daddy's study. It could have been in your mama's kitchen. It could have been in bed at night. It could have been at the steps of a church, the stage of a church. It could have been in your seat in an arena. It could have been on a football field. It could have been in your car on your way to work. It could have been out in the woods when you're walking around. It could have been at VBS, Kid Blast, or discipleship training, or Sunday school. What matters is not when and where, and how dramatic it was. What matters is the confession. Notice verses 8 through 10. Bright light, and he says, who are you, what? Lord. Who are you, Lord? And then Jesus says, I'm Jesus of Nazareth, bro. And then he says, what shall I do, Lord? This is the point. Not the tears, not the blindness, not the drama, not the donkey, not the dreams. These are all legitimate markers, but we can all reason that you could have very dramatic experiences without confessing Jesus is Lord. So it is true. A movie can move me to tears. An Auburn football game moved many of you to tears last night, right? Emotions are an important part of our lives and our spiritual lives. Yet the confession is the magic. Right? Romans 10:9. If we confess with our mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in our heart that God raised him from the dead, we will be saved. Confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, and you will be saved. This is the true drama. This is what we're really looking for when Saul says, what shall I do, Lord? And he says, rise and go to Ananias' house. Rise and be baptized. When did it happen for you? It may have been like a building thing for you. Like when you started coming to church and you're just sitting and you're learning and you're learning and you're learning, and then you come to a point where you just go, I believe it. I confess it. For some of you, it may have been a dramatic moment full of tears. It was for me. For some of you, you may have been a child. Probably for many of you, you were a child. Confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, and you will be saved. This is the truth. You see, Paul knew a lot about God. He knew more than I know, than you know, than all of us combined knew about God at the time. He could quote the first 5 books of the Old Testament by memory. That was part of his regimen that he would have been taught. You read his writings, you can gather that he was very, very intelligent. Yet he did not know Jesus of Nazareth until that day on the road to Damascus when the bright lights of his glory shone in Paul's life. And he realized he was blind. You See, you and I cannot confess that Jesus is Lord until we realize that we're not, that we're a failure, that he is far bigger and stronger and greater than we. I want you to know, if you haven't confessed Jesus as Lord, if you've been holding out, coming to church saying, I don't know if I believe it, or I've got time, I would rather live my life my way, I want you to know that today you can be changed. And you need to be changed. There's nothing that will fill you. And there's nothing that you can fulfill that will make you right with God. So what about you, Christian connector, connect person in the room? When did it happen for you? When did you confess that Jesus is Lord? When did you believe the gospel? And then the last part of the testimony, which is the best part, and I believe one of the most important parts, if not the most important part, is how did my life change as a result of believing the gospel? Look at what he says, verse 17. His change is interesting. When I had returned to Jerusalem and was praying in the temple, I fell into a trance. And I saw him saying to me, make haste and get out of Jerusalem quickly, because they will not accept your testimony about me. And I said, Lord, they themselves know that in one synagogue after another I imprisoned and beat those who believed in you. And when the blood of Stephen, you remember Stephen in Acts chapter 6, you know that story? And when the blood of Stephen, your witness, was being shed, I myself was standing by and approving and watching over the garments of those who killed him. Just as a young man. And he said to me, go, for I will send you far away to the Gentiles. Paul gets his marching orders. He gets his life's mission. He finds his purpose, is how we would say it in America. He was seeking his purpose, and what he thought he found as his purpose, but it was blind purpose. It was a blind zeal. He met Jesus on that Damascus road, and he said, you are Lord, and you are in control, and I will move in your way. And Jesus says, all right, you got a lot to do. You got a lot of opportunity before you. You will take the gospel to the Gentiles. Now, the details here, there are more things that we know about Paul from his story, and I think it's important for us to acknowledge those before we read into what he actually says. He was a persecutor who became a planter. Right? He's a persecutor of the way, and then he becomes the ultimate church planter of the way. He establishes churches all over the Roman Empire. He's boom, on a ship here, it's there 13 months, boom, to the next town, to the next town, to the next town. And he says, I took the gospel to all of Asia. He says that in Acts chapter 19. That would be modern day Turkey. Did he take it literally? No, he goes and he tells people and he empowers them to go and do it. So he's the persecutor who becomes the preacher, who becomes the church planter. He's the destroyer of the faith, who now is the defender of the faith. He's once the hunter of Christians, who now he's the hunted Christian. There's all of this drama of a man's life that was absolutely and positively changed in the most astounding way that anyone could ever acknowledge. Yet what he says in verses 17 through verse 21 do not seem that dramatic. The truth is that in Paul's story, we could focus on those things. He's the persecutor, becomes the preacher. The hunter becomes the hunted. The destroyer, who becomes the defender. But if you really look at Saul or Paul's biography, from the time that he has this experience on Damascus, he goes into 3 years of solitude. Because no one but Ananias would accept him. No one would believe the life change that had happened in him. No one would believe that he had this experience with God because they were afraid of him. Remember, he's a guy who's throwing their family in jail last week. This week, he's like, I'm good. I believe. It took 14 years. 14 years for the disciples to accept Paul. So we read it and we go, yeah, it's like a couple of days. He's riding up and they got it. And James is like, yeah, come on in. You're good, man. No, 14 years of demonstrated life change before the disciples. James, it's actually not even the disciples. It's James, the half-brother of Jesus, who's the leader of the church in Jerusalem at that time, the leader of the church, not Peter. James, the half-brother of Jesus, finally says, all right, Saul, we have 14 years of evidence that you have experienced life change. You come on in. And then they accept him. 14 years of being persecuted, of being outcast, being persecuted by Jews and outcast by Christians. 14 years he went through that. His life was totally changed. He was a new man even when others didn't see the newness. And it wasn't dependent on his acceptance from other people. Paul's life was changed because he believed the gospel. And the same is true for you and me. When we believe the gospel truly, wholeheartedly, completely, it changes us. It's the truth. If I can't look back on my life and go, there was a point in time in my life where the change began in me, then I may need to reevaluate my story. You see, when the gospel comes into our lives, when we believe it, it's like a seed planted in our heart. It's watered and tilled through suffering and hardship and difficulty in our lives, through the Spirit of God, and it grows. It's the Spirit of God in us, transforming our hearts. But it's not just our heart that it's transforming. It transforms our hearts first, and then it transforms our tongues, and our hands, and our feet, and our eyes. Belief brings change. Belief in Jesus brings change in our lives. So my story. Josh, you can come on up. I don't know where you are, bud. My story. I'm sharing with you my testimony. This. I was a kid raised in church, pretty educated. I was a kid who was passionate to be right. Still a person who's passionate to be right. But then I was a kid who was passionate to be right, passionate to do the right things, say the right things, think the right things, and even act in the right way. High value for me. I knew my Bible pretty well. I read it. I prayed. I was raised that way. I was always in church. But about from 14 going into 15, that would conclude in about the third month of being 16, I was faced with a crisis. The crisis was me. You see, because I knew the right things that I should do. I knew the right actions that I should take, the right way that I should treat people. But I always found myself doing the opposite. And I knew the wrong things that I shouldn't do. But like a moth to the flame, I found myself just doing the wrong things. I was moving into adulthood, learning to deal with life. And what I found is that I had a lot of guilt, shame, knowing the right to do and not able to do it, not the capacity to carry it out. And that led me to the emotion of anger. I was angry at everyone around me. But the reality is that anger that I had toward everyone around me was anger that I had toward myself. Unable to be good enough, be right enough, to fulfill and meet my own expectations of myself. 16 in probably 3 months. I'm at church on a Sunday morning like I was every Sunday morning. It was Palm Sunday. Preacher preached, and it was very simple. I remember him holding up the little red and black and yellow and green cards, little EE cards. He must have, not prepared that week. It was just a simple little sermon. And in that moment, after hearing that, something I'd heard my entire life, my eyes, my ears were awakened. I realized that I would never be good enough. That it's not that I needed to be more, but that I needed to give up on being enough. And that morning, I quietly, singularly went down to the front steps and I gave up. I gave up on being good enough. And I believed. No one knew it but me. Everybody already thought I was good. Right? I was a guy who could quote some Bible verses. I was always at church. I wasn't good. I was broken. I was lost. I was caught in the web of sin. I was nothing more than a puppet with strings attached to the flesh, the hand of Satan. I went where he wanted me to go. I did what he wanted me to do. I talked how he wanted me to talk. I acted not in a way that I wanted to, but in a way that my instinct, my nature led me to. But not after that morning. That morning I confessed Christ, believing that he rose from the dead for the forgiveness of my sins, and I was forgiven. The guilt and the shame were removed from me. And my life was changed. Not entirely. The change began in that moment. I was a new man. I was a new creation. The old was gone and the new has come. New. I was a creation that would make bigger mistakes. At 17, I did one of the stupidest things I hope I ever will do. One of the biggest mistakes of my life happened at 17, just a year later. But it was different. I wasn't a slave. I wasn't a puppet on a string. I was a child of God. My life was changed that moment. I was empowered to overcome. I was given peace. So if you boiled my story down into one sentence, and I think you all should attempt to boil your story, to saturate it down into one sentence. I was guilty and angry. I gave up and believed. And I was given peace, power. I was free. It's a little more than one sentence, or a really big run on. But it's simple, quick. I can share it in 30 seconds. Saul's would be, I was blind. And Jesus came to me, and now I see. What's your story say? Do you have a story? Hope that you do. Pray with me. God, I thank you for the simplicity of what you really want from us. And it's us. Father, for the person in the room who doesn't have a story, in this moment, you give them a story. Confession of you as Lord and risen King. God, will you forgive them of their sin? Would you cleanse them of their unrighteousness? Would you give them a new heart through the power of your Holy Spirit, transforming them from the inside out? For the person in the room who has the story, God, may they rejoice. May they remember what you've done. And may they share it. In your holy name. Amen. You stand as Josh begins to lead us in this song of response. If you're in the room today and you don't have a story, or you don't have clarity on your story, you need clarity. It's that simple. Romans 10:9. Today, give up on being bad enough, give up on being good enough, give up on earning it. Come and give up. Believe that he is Lord, that he rose from the dead, that you can be free. I've known it, 25 years, 24 years. There are people in the room that have known it longer than that. It is the most important decision of your life. Because it's not just for this life, to the day you die, but it's forever. Be saved. I'll be down front. I'd love to pray with you. Brandon's around. He'd love to pray with you. He's in the back, actually, so if you want to go to the back, he's back there. You go talk to him. You come, you respond, you worship and revel in the goodness of God's work.